Hi, I'm Katie Ziskind, the owner of Wisdom Within Counseling and Coaching. You can book your free phone consultation to improve your sex life at wisdomwithinct.com. This video is about religious shame and guilt. I think this is important to speak to. It may not apply to everyone, but it can definitely apply to some people. If you were brought up in an environment where in your childhood, sex was not discussed, or sex was a bad word, sex was taboo. If you had sex before marriage, you were going to die. You would also be disowned by your family if you got pregnant before marriage. There are all of these messages that we receive that are very negative, that lead to shame and guilt. A lot of adolescents grow up in a strict environment where, they're not taught body consent. And if they do receive some level, of unwanted touch, it's disregarded entirely, when they speak up. So, if you may have told your parents, hey, this person did this thing to me that was not okay, and they did nothing, or, there was no sense of justice involved, or you were blamed. Oh, you were wearing too short of a skirt. Oh, we could see your underwear through your clothing. Oh, it was you causing the issue. You're the drama, you're the distraction, and so there's this internalized self-blame and self-hatred that can evolve from growing up in a shameful, religious and household where there's just not, parents and caregivers do not receive proper sex education. They don't have the tools to talk to children and adolescents about consent, and oftentimes, within a strict religious community, there may be sexual predators within that community. So that can also sometimes be a mask for some really dysfunctional abuse that could be occurring. So, living in a community where, you have to look a certain way or kind of be perfect can really have impacts negatively on being sexually confident or exploring your sexuality or even having a healthy sex life with a trusted partner in adulthood. So, sometimes we grow up in a purity culture where, you're supposed to abstain from sex until marriage, and there are many, many different ways this can look for each person, for each adult. Sometimes in adulthood, we push away, different types of kinks or interests or sexual fantasies that we have that are probably very normal within normal range, because we don't really have exposure to other people who are like us as a growing teenager, and so often without being taught about consent, we don't know how to say no. We don't know how to say, hey, stop, this doesn't feel good, or I'm uncomfortable right now. I'd like you to stop touching me, right? Like, we don't have those tools until we're, you know, rediscovering our sexuality within an intimate partnership, you know? So I think that talking about sexual shame, talking about sexual guilt, where it comes from, is a really beautiful part of having a relationship. You and your partner can have deep, intimate conversations about your upbringing, the messages you were taught, even being from a, small town or close-knit community, when you first have sex, like the entire town might know about it and every aunt and uncle and cousin is now aware. And, that can be very, for some teenagers, publicly humiliating, can be embarrassing, can be, difficult to explore sexually when you know that everyone and their aunt and uncle is going to know about it. And you just want to have kind of a sense of privacy to your life. So there can be all different things that, develop in our adult relationships as kind of that hinder intimacy or, hinder our ability to be expressive because of where we come from and the messages we receive around sex. Sometimes we have a very hypersexual environment where we're raised, where we have the exact opposite, where there's, kind of also an internal sense of shame and guilt that develops because, relatives may be hypersexual or, making comments about a developing body, and there's so much shame and guilt that can develop when people make comments about your body shape, your body weight, in adolescence and in your teenage years. And that can be, a whole set of different things to work through. So, there can also be elements of fight, flight, and freeze responses that develop in a romantic partnership because of sexual shame and guilt from a really strict religious upbringing. If I work with all different types of couples, monogamous couples, as well as open and polyamorous couples. And, for many couples that are kind of looking for a more open style, consensually open relationship or ethically non monogamous relationship, opening a relationship can be, bring up shame and guilt because, maybe you only had models or examples practicing monogamy in your relationships, growing up, or, kind of being with a different partner was seen as bad, or you were, damaging to the family name, or kind of all of these really heavy legacy burdens that we can carry, just like in that backpack, it can be some of those rocks that we're carrying. So, but as part of homework for this chapter, I'd like for you and your partner to sit down and start speaking to what religious shame and guilt you guys may have experienced in your upbringings. Because our childhood deeply influences who we are. Our childhood has a major, major impact on how we express ourselves, our sexual desires, sexual fantasies, needs. It's not 100% of where these things come from, but it's important to start having these conversations together, because you might not realize it, but your partner may still be kind of holding back a part of themselves as a result of cultural, societal, and religious shame that they faced in their childhood. So, having this conversation can promote creating a safe space at home, an emotionally intimate safe space. And when you do find shame and guilt arise, really step into sexual confidence. Use those affirmations. I deserve sexual pleasure. I know that having sexual urges is totally normal. Wanting to self pleasure in a balanced way is a part of a healthy sex life. So you have to kind of go in and combat some of the shame and guilt that has been ingrained and kind of maybe pounded into your mindset. And just know that it's okay. It is okay to have different urges. Talking with your partner about them is going to be a beautiful and healthy conversation and build meaningful connection for your sex life. So, if you're looking to get started in more of a private setting, whether that's couples work or getting more comfortable in your body to improve intimacy, you can book a free phone consultation to work with my team or myself at Wisdom Within Counseling and Coaching at wisdomwithinct.com. I'm Katie Ziskind, and I hope you have a great day.